What we're going to do is we're going to attempt to go to Ardha Chandrasana from Vrksasana. Yeah, just to enter it a different way. Shall we try that? Okay, so I'll show you. So let's come to kneel. Let's try to stand up with grace from our knees. Okay, so take your right leg forward and press down through your right heel and up you come. Good, okay, not bad. All right, so
like a superhero.
Yeah, we'll be working with that tonight, the superhero thing. Okay, so from Vrksasana, we'll leave our arms out to the side. I'm actually going to use this leg. So we were working on that in Anatasana. I'm going to use this leg. Actually, let's try one thing first. Can we try one thing first? This will be really fun. Get your block. Put it on your mat. This is hard, but really good for us. So I'm going to stand on one leg, like you did before. So just watch for a moment. And you know, in Vrksasana 3 and in Ardha Chandrasana, you have to keep your this lateral hip area engaged as you bend forward. So from the side, it's like here. It's basically like I'm doing an Uttanasana on one leg. I have to learn not to allow this hip to go out when I bend forward. And that's challenging. I have to keep it. It's just the same action of pressing from the outer hip down to the heel to maintain that as I bring my torso forward over my leg. And many of us, because when you bend forward, your gluteals naturally relax a bit, right? Because that's what allows you to bend forward. But what we have to learn to do in poses like Ardha Chandrasana and Vrksasana 3 is keep some tone in our hamstrings. Keep some tone, especially in the lateral buttocks and the lateral rotators to some degree, so that we can do that forward bend without letting everything go. And so we're not going to bend forward very far right now. You're going to only go as far as you're able to maintain that support and strength, like you did earlier. You're adding, can I just go forward and keep that hip connected? Because if I go too far and I lose it, that's what I'm practicing. I'm practicing instability. Does that make sense? So give yourself the opportunity to not go as far. Okay, so let's try. Let's stand on our left leg and we'll just try this a couple times to each side, because this is something that you could practice regularly and it would be helpful. So press from your outer left hip down to your heel. So this is like just the standing leg of Warrior 3. Think of it like that. We're not going to take our right leg back. We're just going to leave it right where it is. So keep pressing from your outer left hip down to your heel and bend forward a little bit without losing that connection of your outer left hip plugged in. Plugged in. And then come back up, keeping the left hip plugged in. Do you feel that work, everyone? Right? Okay, try it one more time. Come forward. It's a little harder with the second repetition. So press from your outer left hip down to your heel. And as you come forward, keep your right leg right where it is. Keep that outer left hip plugged in. You're increasing your range of motion without losing the stability. And then come back up, maintaining. And then step down. We'll try our other side. Do you feel your hamstring even? A little bit on the standing leg? Maybe? The outer hip. Yeah, totally the outer hip. So come up. Let's try. Once to the other side. You'll be grateful that you did this in a moment. Okay. So keep your toes. So try to keep that standing foot pointing straight ahead if possible. So step down for a second, Carol, and just point it. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. It's natural to turn the foot out. We want to have that strength at the hip, so we're not just doing it from the foot. So keep your other leg very straight to take that foot off the floor. Okay, now put your hands right at your lateral buttocks. They're a little low. Yeah, it's that whole area. But let's focus on the greater trochanter region. Press from your outer left hip down to your heel. Stay up on that, right hip, up on that right hip as you bend forward. Don't take the left leg back. So we're just focusing on that standing leg hip. You bend forward as much as you're able to do, keeping The outer hip plugged in. Don't take the foot back yet. Don't take the foot back, Susanna. That's it. And then come back up, keeping the engagement. Take a breath. Put your hand right on your outer hip so you should feel a hollowing, right? A hollowing. Keep it sucked in. It's like shrink wrap of your suitcase for your hips. It's an inner belt. It's an inner belt, okay? So press from your outer right hip down to the heel, and now start to come forward without losing that inner belt around the very top of the right leg, that shrink wrap at your outer hips. You are paying attention to your inner belt. Bind your consciousness there. And then come back up slowly, maintaining the support. And then step down. Do you see how that puts a spotlight on a piece that we might just cruise through in the classical pose, adapting, but not necessarily improving? Because adaptation is not necessarily an improvement. It's just like if we sit a lot, what happens is our hip flexors shorten. They just adapt. You're like, if you're not going to stand, I will take the shape that you're put me in most of the time. And that is just an adaptation, but it doesn't mean it's an improvement. Okay, so the body just does what it does. And asking this area to work is something that we actually have to be deliberate about, because we sit a lot, and when we sit, it goes to sleep. Okay? So now we'll take our block off our mat, and we're going to try the Vrksasana to Ardha Chandrasana. You ready? So let's do this. Stagger your mats, one a little forward and a little back, so you feel like you have more room. And we'll try this standing, couple things standing, and then we're going to go down to the ground and do something really fun before we relax, okay? So if you watch for a moment, I'll show you from the front, and I'll show you from the side. So I'm going to use this leg, this Vrksasana leg, to help this outer hip stay plugged in as I go to Ardha Chandrasana. So I keep this knee wide and high so that these outer hip muscles on my standing leg stay plugged in as I start to come towards Ardha Chandrasana. And I don't care today if you touch the floor or not, because you might have more connection with the smaller range of motion. And you're going to try to come back up, keeping this knee high so that this outer hip stays plugged in. You up for that? Okay. So did you see how that going from Vrksasana, now that's a little different because you're taking your pelvis and you're taking the socket of the hip joint and you're revolving the socket around the ball, as like you did here. You were revolving the socket around the ball rather than moving the ball in the socket. So that requires more neuromuscular strength and coordination than this. This is more complex. And what we've added is a rotation to it, which is even more complex. So it doesn't matter if you do it, just keep your attention on that outer hip plugged in and the Vrksasana knee pressing back like you did in Anatasana. Okay? So let's try. So let's stand on our left leg and take our right foot up. And it really doesn't matter if you touch the floor or not. In fact, it might be better if you don't. We're going to keep our arms out to the side. Okay. Now, take your right knee, take the right foot up off of your thigh. Keep that outer left hip plugged in. Keep your right knee high. As you start to move towards Ardha Chandrasana, you can look towards the floor. Keep your right arm extending up. That's it. And now come back up, keeping your right knee high and wide. High and wide. High and wide. That's it. High and wide, so the left hip stays in. And you can use your hand to put your foot in Vrksasana. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. And look at you in Vrksasana. Okay, now bring your arms down.
Okay, this is a dancing pose.
It kind of is, isn't it? Natarajasana. Nataraj, yes. You are, and so because we're going to try Virabhadrasana 3 from here to see if it can inform Virabhadrasana 3. We'll just touch it. We're going to Ardha Chandrasana, Vrksasana 3. But what was wonderful, Mary, is that you had so much tenacity in that variation. Like she was, you should see, she was like in and out, but she was like, no, I'm gonna fly here. And that's what that is that prayatna, persevering effort. Prayatna, persevering effort. So let's try to the other side. Or as Patanjali says earlier when he talks about effort, he says what practice, he defines practice as tatra stitau yatno bhyasa. It is the steadfast effort to stabilize your attention. So it doesn't matter if your body wavers. Your attention is you're going to stay on the horse. So let's try. So let's bring our other leg up. It might be different from side to side. And it's okay to wobble. Take your arms to the side. So here's our thing. Before we go this side, press from your outer right hip down to your heel. And then as you start to come, imagine you're a bird. So you've got these wide wings. Lift your left knee. These wide wings, your left knee is a wing too. You're looking towards the earth and you're just flying. So it doesn't matter how far down you go. That's it. And then come back up before you touch so that you don't give your hip time to go loose. That's right, Mary. Yeah. Yes. Okay, we're going to try it one more time. And that was better. So when you try it this time, let go of sometimes there's a strong need to want to touch the floor. And it's not wrong. I mean, we do in Ardha Chandrasana, the hand is down. But right now we're putting a spotlight on the support of the hips. So here we're going to use our imagination, because that's another way to support yourself. You're going to use your mind. You can imagine the space around you supporting you. Imagine, just for fun, that you're a bird. Okay? So that you've got these bird wings, a wing here, wings here, and you are up flying. So you're using the space that is surrounding you to support you, as well as keeping this hip plugged in, outer hip plugged in, because this knee is up. So we're actually letting the space support the body. And yet, maybe your hand comes down, maybe it doesn't. It's so not important. What's important right now is that you're using the space to support you and also connecting that big anchor right at your outer hips. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's try one more time to each side, imagining that we're a bird. Okay, so you're going to start on the tree. So first we're a tree. Vrksasana. And then we're going to be the bird that flies from the tree. So squeeze, press from your outer left hip down to the heel, and then keep your right knee wide, your arms wide. Feel that space supporting you. Don't worry about going down to the ground. Keep reaching up through your right arm. Feel the space supporting you. And then slowly come back up so you're not taking yourself out of that place where you can feel the continuous support. Yeah. You can do Vrksasana when you come out. Okay, good. And then down you come. So let's try again. And I know it's hard when, the thing about balance is you are getting benefit whether you feel like you're successful or not. And what's unfortunate is when we don't provide ourselves with a challenge, it's actually okay to take yourself to that place where you're like, I am having a little bit of trouble right now. That's where you make new connections. This is where, new neuronal pathways. We're not just repeating the groove, we're making a new groove. And the other really great groove that's deepening is, I am not disturbed by my inability to balance right now. That is the deepest groove that the most wonderful gift is when you can be like, today it's not happening, but I'm going to stay with this endeavor. I'm going to support myself whether it's a good balanced day or not, because that's when we're really nurturing ourselves in the practice. So we try our second side. Okay, so bird pose. Bird on the tree, last time, okay? So Vrksasana. So when you put your left foot up, Go directly to your right outer hip and press it down to the right foot. So you're connecting from the hip to the foot. That's your trunk. Now spread your wings. Now as we come to Ardha Chandrasana, keep your wings wide, that left knee and your two arms wide. So you're letting the space support you. And then come back up before you go to that place where your muscles lose their intelligence. Come back up. Yeah. Take a breath. Excellent. Okay, so that got better.